The day after Thanksgiving in 1985, a man and woman walked into the University of Arizona's Museum of Art and they stole a $400,000 painting from its frame. This is the story of how a couple got away for over 30 years after stealing Willem de Kooning's Woman Ochre from the University of Arizona Museum of Art. So shortly before that museum opened that day, the day after Thanksgiving, a very slow day for an art museum, or right at the time that it opened, a man and woman enter that museum. The woman distracts the security guard while the man pretends to go upstairs to use the restroom. Instead, the man is cutting that artwork out of its frame. So he cuts this artwork out of its frame, he rolls it up, and he places it underneath his clothing. The man and woman do get away. The security guard or other witnesses there do note that the man and woman are seen leaving in a rust-colored sports car. And then just a couple of weeks after that art was stolen, these sketches were drawn of the suspects. 2 years later, in 1987, the FBI put that stolen artwork on its most wanted stolen artworks list. But it's not until the 2017 death of a New Mexico retired school teacher, Rita Alter, when the painting was discovered. Rita's husband, Jerry, had actually passed away in 2012, and then in 2017, Rita passes away, and they had named their nephew as the executor of their estate. Of course, the nephew allows family members to come into the home, take what they want, and then what was left, he decided that he was going to try to sell to an antiques dealer. So he ends up contacting this antiques dealer in Silver City, New Mexico. They come into the home, they look around, they take photos, all of these photos here, and they didn't really see anything that interested them very much. They did notice this very strange piece of art behind the master bedroom door. But they didn't know what it was. So they offered, I believe, $2,000 for all of the items in the home, and they purchased them for that amount, and they take them back to their antique store in Silver City. As they're unloading items, they get this piece of artwork out, and they sit it on the floor in their shop when within just a few hours, an artist comes in. He sees this artwork, and he immediately offers them $200,000 for this piece of art. At that point, they decide that they better investigate this a little bit further because that was just an absurd amount to them. They thought the painting was horribly ugly. And several pages into a Google search, they find an article about the stolen artwork from the University of Arizona Museum of Art in 1985, and they realize that the picture shown in the article looks very similar to the artwork that's sitting on the floor in their antique shop. And then upon closer inspection, they decide that they believe that they probably have this stolen piece of art. So they decide immediately to contact the Museum of Art. They do so, and the museum initially seems like they don't really believe them. Eventually, the museum does send a team down to this antique shop to look at this piece of art, and it is confirmed that it is the stolen work of art. Now, at this point in 2017, this piece of art is valued at $160 million. So then the question became, were Rita and Jerry the thieves that day in 1985? Were they the ones that actually stole this piece of art? Well, the more photos that they uncovered from their home, the more they realized that it is likely that Rita and Jerry were the ones who stole the art that day. As you can see here, this is a red sports car, which people there that day, witnesses there that day, say looks very similar to the car that they saw the suspects leave in. Now, Rita also kept a very extensive journal. Rita and Jerry were both school teachers. Jerry was a retired music teacher. Rita was a speech language pathologist in a local public school, and they were just these very kind of mysterious people. They took over 140 trips to foreign countries, and they would go and they would stay for a month at least at the time. They just were always on some kind of grand adventure that would cost a significant amount of money. In addition to that, when Rita passed away, there was over $1 million in their bank account. Their travel agent even reported that they were just adrenaline junkies. They said that Rita and Jerry would fly into a country where they were legally allowed to be, and then they would pay a local to smuggle them into another country where they were not legally allowed to be. So they just kind of lived on the edge. And they truly had some amazing travels. I don't know that there's anywhere that Rita and Jerry didn't go. In 2011, Jerry actually publishes this book, The Cup and the Lip. It is a collection of short stories that seem to be fictional until you really start reading them. There are stories inside about a couple who travel overseas internationally. They carry out just some petty theft. They steal purses and things like that. They also go into jewelers and they end up getting away with some very expensive jewels. There's even a story inside about a woman and her granddaughter who go into a museum and distract a security guard while they steal the largest emerald in the world and get away with it. And they take it home and they put it in an area that only their eyes can see. Now, in this journal that Rita kept, like I said, it was extremely detailed, except for Thanksgiving 1985. But we do know for a fact that they were in that area when that art heist went down. There had been a couple of other pieces of art stolen in that same general area between like Tucson and where Rita and Jerry lived in New Mexico. This was one of those paintings that was stolen. This is another one that was stolen. Now, the one prior to this and this one ended up being auctioned off because they were not on any like stolen art list. Here's a photo of Jerry inside of his home playing his clarinet. Look what's on the wall. The two photos, the two pieces of art that I just showed you. Here's another photo of Rita and Jerry. I'm going to put these sketches up below them. You can see there's a striking similarity. The security guard that day did say that the mustache the man wore looked to be fake, so keep that in mind. There are also many pictures of Rita wearing a headscarf. One thing that I forgot to mention is that below this artwork, kind of in the baseboard, a screw had been placed to prevent this door from opening into that piece of art. So we know that Rita and Jerry most likely stole Willem de Kooning's woman Ochre. They most likely stole other art pieces as well. But there is now the question of whether or not Jerry actually murdered someone. One of the short stories in The Cup and the Lip is called The Handyman. Jerry was known to have migrant Mexican workers, undocumented workers, to come across the border and do work around his home. In The Handyman, it talks about a homeowner murdering a worker, a handyman, disposing of his body in a septic tank, and essentially getting away with it. Now, of course, Rita and Jerry's family do not want to believe that they could be responsible for a murder. They do not believe that that's their character. But I don't think that anyone really knew Rita and Jerry. In addition to that, it is widely documented that Rita and Jerry's septic tank was over 40 years old. It had never been replaced. It had never been serviced. And even up until just a few weeks before Rita's death, the family was trying to get her to agree to, hey, let's have this septic tank replaced, let's have it serviced. And they say that it actually became an argument because she was just downright refusing to have anything done to that septic tank. No victim has been found. There has not been any proof of any murder that took place except for the short story in Jerry's book, The Cup and the Lip. But you decide. If you are interested in this story, I highly recommend this documentary. It's called The Thief Collector. This is not an ad. I just watched it and I enjoyed it. It can be found on a lot of different networks. I think I watched it on Peacock. Again, this is not an ad. I don't care where you watch it. I don't care if you watch it. But it is a very intriguing story, and this documentary does a fantastic job telling that story. Woman Ochre made its way back to the University of Arizona Museum of Art. It was restored, and it is now on exhibit. It can be seen there.